So today I wanted to talk about why I am not a conservative. To regular viewers of the channel, this may come as something of a surprise. As I am a traditionalist, I believe tradition has value in and of itself. I have a preservationist mindset when it comes to Western civilization, and I also espouse socially conservative values and support them being upheld through societal institutions. Despite all of this, I don't call myself a conservative. You might even call me an anti-conservative, as I believe conservatism does not hold any answers to the problems currently facing the West. But what are these problems that Western civilization is facing, and how is it that conservatism fails to deal with them? Well, to understand this, we have to ask, what is conservatism? To many on the left and to liberals, they don't even view conservatism as a legitimate ideology. Conservatism to them is more of a social instinct. They claim this exists as a false consciousness created by bigotry, prejudice, and ignorance. People live in a particular place, in a particular historical and cultural context, and they attach themselves to traditions, to ways of life and to customs. These cannot be defended rationally, and because the world can only be understood rationally by people who are liberals or materialists, then none of these traditions can actually be defended. And the only reason people would believe in them is because of bigotry. Obviously, I reject this, as I think there are many rational reasons that you can find to support socially conservative values, but that's not why they're supported. And it also doesn't explain the issue of value, what it is that we value. Social conservatism may be proved rationally to help society function in a more healthy way, but then you need an external source of value to decide what is healthy and what is desirable. Leftists and liberals and Marxists have a scientific and rationalist view of history. They view it as a science that moves progressively forward. Conservatism then is just human social resistance to progress. A great critic of this viewpoint is the late philosopher Roger Scruton, who I personally have a tremendous amount of respect for, and who's had a large influence on my own formation. Roger Scruton was a man who had, contributed immeasurably to the fields of philosophy and politics, and a man whose legacy, is unmatched by any other contemporary philosopher. A man who lived out his values, which is something that we should all aspire to, with his work in Eastern Europe against communism. And Roger Scruton, he viewed it as his life mission to basically give a rigorous, formal, ideological backing to conservatism, to act as a counterpoint against leftism and liberalism. But unfortunately, I don't think he was entirely successful in doing so. I think he was far more successful in other spheres, his contributions to aesthetics and other parts of philosophy. So what are my issues with ideological conservatism? Well, one is that ideological conservatism is mismatched against ideological leftism. There's something ideological about leftism and something non-ideological about conservatism. So they can't really compete with one another in the battle of ideology. And then there are other issues that everything that is conservative, that we view as being conservative, was at some point revolutionary, was at some point far outside the bounds of normalcy within a society, and will at some point in the future become revolutionary too, like many things are now. So just the pure instinct to preserve social institutions can't be enough. There must be a different context in which they exist. And also, many of the institutions that exist in the West are liberal and have been for a very long time, going all the way back to the Enlightenment or to the Reformation. And their conclusion is happening now, and we're living among the consequences of those very tumultuous events within European society. So our set of values needs to exist outside of just the preservationist mindset to particular institution or cultural norms, because those institution and cultural norms may be wrong and have a large history behind them, and they also may become corrupted. There's also an asymmetry with leftism. So within the kind of liberal democratic political discourse, there's this assumption that, well, the right has its ideological beliefs, the left has its ideological beliefs, and then, we just disagree rationally, and then we come to a consensus somewhere in the middle, and then stuff gets done, and it's a coincidence of interests. This is complete nonsense, and it doesn't work. There's a deep asymmetry between a right-wing worldview and a left-wing worldview. A left-wing worldview is entirely based on negation. It's about taking people who are failures, who are resentful, who are untalented, who are victims, and leveraging them against a society, leveraging them against order, leveraging them against meaning, against hierarchy, against the majority, the dominant force, and creating a kind of critical mass of a majority of minorities to destroy and undermine. Leftism doesn't have a positive worldview. It's based entirely on negation. And even the liberals who find themselves on the left have this sort of cult of human liberty at the center, but liberty from all things. It's not the conditional liberty of classical philosophy. It's, again, a liberty of negation. So you can view leftism in this worldview as a kind of chaos. It's like breaking the glass. It's like rolling the boulder down the hill. It's something that when it's broken, it's not symmetrical to fix it again. When you shatter a glass, you can't stitch all of the shards of glass back together again. It will take enormous effort. It's less effort just to create a new one. So the left has this force of entropy. It always moves towards chaos. And what is right? Right is order. It is meaning. It is dignity. It is beautiful architecture. It is intact families. It is the authority of a leader, of a king. It is the sovereignty of a people. It is, the regularities of life. These are seen as immoral, as constraining, as eradicating the individuality by leftists and liberals. But this is the asymmetry. So you can never really have an ideological conservatism as a counterpart effectively to an ideological leftism. There's just a deep asymmetry between the two of them. To accomplish this, you would need a kind of revolutionary conservatism. But of course, that would completely undermine the whole premise of conservatism, for it to be a revolutionary conservatism. So what it is that underpins being right-wing, has to be different and distinct from just happening to conserve a lot of the institutions in the society. And you can see this failure manifest with the Tories. What are the Tories? The Tories are liberals from 10 years ago. And this happens in a lot of countries in the Anglosphere. You have conservatives who are basically liberals. And if they're really radical, they're like liberals from the 1980s. Or if they're crazy radical, maybe they're like liberals from 100 years ago. We don't want the liberalism from 100 years ago. We don't want the liberalism of the 1980s. We don't want Reagan. We don't even want, the Whigs from the 1800s. We don't want any of this. You want something that lies outside of history, something sort of eternal, divine order, a metaphysically objective, supreme order that informs beauty, dignity, order and meaning within your own life and ultimately within your own society. And this has to exist outside of the petty social instinct to conserve institutions that happen to be around you. And because many of those institutions are liberal, they paint a face of playing to the prejudicial instincts to, shun change and to live small, cozy lives. The prejudicial instincts against progress, they play to them just like conservative parties do, but at their very, very heart, the philosophical premises that they're based on are identical to those of leftists. And that's how you end up in a situation where a conservative is just a leftist from 10 years ago. This appeals to people. I mean, who's attracted to this type of conservatism? People who are scared by change, scared by what is radical, scared by the modern world, and want the comfort of their youth when they were able to accept, the state of the society at that time, that state of liberalism. Can't we just go back to a state of liberalism that was slightly less degraded, slightly less deranged, slightly more acclimatized to my own formation when I was a child and was indoctrinated within it? So this is another problem with conservatism. It just attracts very uncreative, very unradical people who are very, very hard to do anything, truly progressive with. To be a right-winger is to be truly progressive, to be truly radical. And conservatism just cannot be part of that. The changes needed to undergo to do anything to stop the decline, to arrest the decline of Western civilization, are so radical, are so painful, that conservatism can be no part of that. If rightists ran the society like they used to, then people should be conservatives, because if you live in a virtuous society, you should conserve it. So conservatism is a kind of apolitical instinct of healthy individuals in a society where the franchise has been removed from them. We don't live in that society. So conservatism is not useful to us. The franchise exists for everyone. So conservatism is kind of, one massive cope for old people who are alienated by how degenerate and disgusting modernity is. And this also informs what we want. We don't want the optimism of the 1980s. We don't want to be housewives, and men smoking cigars of the 1950s. We don't want to be Victorian gentlemen. We don't want to go back to the 1700s. Perhaps we want to go back to the 1200s, but even that's not good enough. Our frame of value needs to be that of eternity. It cannot be localized to specific historicity. The specifics of our historicity has to be informed by what is eternal, because it has to be informed by what is true and what is good and what is beautiful. What we really want to do is, not a conservative revolution of the 1980s where the whole society gets looted by a bunch of liberal oligarchs while we thumb our noses up at left-wing college professors. We don't want that. What we want is the kind of conservative revolution that happened at the time of Christ, that lasted thousands of years within Europe and created the greatest civilization that mankind has ever seen. In addition to this, conservatism just places us in a very, very malformed and unhealthy place. What we need is to be in this one particular place, this infinitesimally small but important place, which is the place of action, the place of the present, where we are connected to two forms of eternity. The eternity of our past, of our ancestors, whose weight bears down on us, and the eternity of our progeny, of our future. We're suspended in the ultimate moment of action, which is here in the moment. Conservatism simply denies this. Once we truly accept what we are and the burden of our time, we'll find ourselves in this moment, this ultimate moment, the most important moment that we have, the present, with the past behind us and opportunity in front of us. And that moment can only be achieved once we have completely rejected conservatism. We want people 1,000 years from now to look at us and conserve what we do in these last dark days of Western liberalism.